you can get it. All right, it's time and of that day where we bring you the latest developments as far as unfolding drama with our polity, talking about our great nation, is concerned. This is Rapid TV's evolving social media, I beg your pardon, social, political, and general interest show we call Korero. And I am Camion John, the beloved, also known as the controversial. Now, of course, as far as Nigerians are concerned, um, organized labor Tuesday suspended the nationwide strike for 5 days to give room for uninterrupted meeting with the tripartite committee on the new minimum wage. Now, reports making the rounds suggest that the organized labor movement may reduce its minimum wage demand to 100,000. I mean, that's what a little bird whispered into the ears of the ever vociferous media, third estate of the realm, that labor's minimum wage demand may come down to about 100,000 at the tripartite meeting on national minimum wage, which embarked on a series of daily meetings for just 1 week to reach a consensus. Now, sources within the labor movement revealed to the media on the union leaders are preparing to lower their original demand from 494,000 naira. The decision follows widespread criticism and controversy over their initial proposal, which many deemed excessive and impracticable. Right now, in a statement released on Saturday, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, through his media aide, Rabiu Ibrahim, emphasized the financial strain of the proposed minimum wage of 494,000, projecting an annual cost of 9.5 trillion naira, a burden he labeled unsustainable for the nation's economy. Now, that's going to be part of our convo this morning because while they claim or they say that the current demand by labor putting forward a demand of 494 naira seems unrealistic, impracticable, or in the words of the Minister of Labor, impossible. When you look at the current minimum wage earned by other African workers across Africa, and even in countries that don't have the kind of natural resource that Nigeria has, you begin to wonder. Anyway, despite intervention attempts by the National Assembly leadership, Labour commenced an indefinite strike on Monday, causing significant disruption nationwide. Now, the strike led to the closure of banks, airports, public schools, and courts, prompting the federal government to convene an emergency meeting to resolve the deadlock. Now, to facilitate progress in negotiations, union leaders announced a 5-day suspension. Now, we're using this word suspension, but according to the leadership of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Joe Ajero, who you will get to hear from very soon, they didn't suspend the strike. In his words, they relaxed the strike. Okay, so a 5-day relaxation of the industrial action on Tuesday, following President Bola Tinubu's agreement to implement a national minimum wage above 60,000 naira. Now, the tripartite committee committed to holding daily meetings until a new minimum wage is finalized, demonstrating his dedication to the negotiation. President Tinubu directed the finance minister, Wale Edun, to present the cost implications of a new minimum wage within 2 days. That's 48 hours, right? Now, this directive was issued during a meeting with the government negotiation team led by the Secretary to the government of the Federation, George Akume, at the presidential villa in Abuja. Now, again, I want to put this out there with emphasis. Organized labor did not call off or suspend the nationwide strike as reported. According to President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Joe Ajero, the strike was only relaxed for 1 week, emphasis relaxed for 1 week, to allow the organized labor to negotiate with government. Now, this was also re-echoed by the Deputy National Secretary ATSAN, Francis Akinjori. So let's hear from both Joe Ajero, President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, and of course Francis Akinjori, the National Secretary of ATSAN.
It was suggested that is it cut off, suspension, or a new lexicon that has now been brought into our dictionary. And we want to believe, exactly just like Comrade Ajero said, that this should begin to fly now. And what is this lexicon? That we should relax this action. It's not a suspension. It's not a call-off. But we are giving them 1 week moratorium to perfect what they thought was impossible. Because as at last Sunday, this Sunday, the song in their mouth, that is the government and their pro-travelers, was that 2 months were the minimum period that this could be achieved.
And we still make again. What think will happen? They don't, when they talk, say, we will go back, as if say all is over. Or they don't trick us. They don't trick us.
No.
If we read there, we still even the ask high. So God bless you all.
Thank you, sir.
This is a struggle to improve the welfare of Nigerian workers. And we have to get it. Already we have achieved 100% to show you know.
Yes.
60,000 is 100%. But it's not enough. So whatever we get now, we try to cut it so that they review it within a short time. That 5 years we don't agree on it. You earn one salary for 5 years. Don't be cheating. So until they change every day. So comrades, keep the ground. You know, even if we call the action, we have given the war with the Finnish negotiation. That doesn't mean we are going to accept whatever they say. We are going back to square zero. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Go join them.
All right. President Nigerian Labour Congress, Joe Ajero, and of course, re-echoing the fact that the strike has not been suspended or called off, rather it has been relaxed. I know viewers and Nigerians will be wondering what is the difference between suspension, call off, and relax. We'll try to get the president of the NLC, Joe Ajero, to give us his lexicon definition of relaxation of the strike. But just to keep Nigerians on their toes so that they won't be caught unawares if news breaks in the next 24 hours that the strike has resumed again. You say, but they suspended it. No, they didn't suspend it. They only relaxed it and gave a 1 week window to negotiate with the tripartite committee. Okay, so now let's get to the crux of the matter of this morning's conversation. The audacity to pay workers a pittance, a stark contrast to the country's boast of economic prosperity. This is very alarming because I've heard some Nigerians react and say, what is Labour shouting? There's no money, there's no money. But I'm hoping that by the time we're done with this morning's conversation, and by the time Labour achieves what it intends to achieve in the process of these coming days, meeting with the tripartite meeting, Nigerians will become better aware of what the true picture is in terms of the welfare, the take home, and living wage of the average worker, the average Nigerian worker. Now, the meager earnings of the Nigerian worker are a national disgrace. Ask me why. A slap in the face of decency and a blight on the nation's wealth. Now, the proposed minimum wage of 60,000 naira is approximately, guess how much? 43 US dollars. Far below the stipulated UN agreed global minimum standard for minimum wage, which is supposed to be $100. So, at even 60,000 naira, the average Nigerian worker, including myself, earns an average of $43 a month, not a day, a month. Okay? And this is a mockery, a paltry sum that fails to honor the efforts and the sacrifices of the Nigerian worker. In contrast, listen to this, and you can fact check it. Workers in other African countries, I'm not talking about Europe, I'm not talking about America, I'm not talking about Latin America or Russia or anywhere else, such as Seychelles, Libya. Libya is in turmoil after the death of Muammar Gaddafi. That country has not seen peace. Yet, Libya pays better wages than Nigeria. Morocco, Gabon, and of course, the country I like to call my second home, South Africa, Mauritius, and Equatorial Guinea. Workers in these African countries earn significantly higher minimum wages, ranging from anything between $150 to $456 monthly. Please compare that to 43 US dollars as it stands if the Nigerian government was to agree to 60,000 naira minimum wage. Okay? So, this gross disparity is a testament to the government's callous disregard for the welfare of its citizens, not just the workers, because the minimum wage of the average Nigerian worker is a reflection of the living standard of the average Nigerian. Now, this is one conversation many people don't want to have because of its controversial nature. So those of you who've been asking, Mr. Kamian, the controversial, we've not seen controversy. This is the controversy, the conversation we are going to have this morning. Now, the Nigerian worker or workers are not just underpaid, they are exploited and forced to survive on wages that are a fraction of what their counterparts earn globally. The minimum wage in the United States, I decide to cross the ocean now to the US, is around $1,160 a month. Now, this is a country where you get paid by the hour, not by the day, not by the month or by the week, by the hour. The average take home of the worker in the United States is $1,160 US dollars. While in the United Kingdom, the UK, it's approximately 1,400 US dollars. Now, this stark contrast highlights the government's failure to prioritize fair compensation for the Nigerian worker. It is a scandal and perpetuates poverty, inequality, and social injustice. So, the question this morning is, will organized labor, the ongoing meeting with the tripartite committee on the new national minimum wage pay off and provide the much desired relief for the average Nigerian worker? So let's have this conversation. Joining me this morning, I was expecting to have two guests, but one of them are the starting minutes of the show, had to send a message that something came up, and I can understand with the current situation of things. We in the fourth estate of the realm, our movement is is not guaranteed in the sense that you plan one thing, something else comes up. But the other guest is around. He was here with us yesterday, and of course, we didn't finish that conversation. And so he did, as he did promise yesterday, he is here this morning for us to continue this conversation. But most importantly, looking at will this ongoing convo between organized labor and the tripartite committee really provide the relief that the average Nigerian worker is looking for? As of yesterday, he gave a prediction that he's looking at maybe anything between 70 to 75,000 naira. But as of this morning, reports making the rounds suggest that labor may just be settling for anything between 100 to 150,000 naira as the minimum wage. At this point, I'd like to welcome my guest, a journalist and public affairs analyst, Kule Adeniyi. Kule, once again, thanks for joining me this morning on the show.
Always a pleasure, John. Always
So,
a pleasure.
Kule, the conversation, the negotiations are ongoing. Organized labor meeting with the tripartite committee. Yesterday, you did say on this show that from your anticipation, you're looking that they may settle for anything between 70 to 75. This morning, we're hearing labor may just settle for anything between 100 to 150. Yesterday, Senator Ojiuzo Kalu, former governor of Abia State, had come out to say, as far as he's concerned, the workers shouldn't be paid anything less than 90,000 naira. And then to further stroke the fire, as it were, my Egbon and senior legal luminary in the person of Femi Falana, SAN, said no governor should say he or she cannot pay minimum wage, or the new phrase now, living wage, as it were. And if any governor should come out to say so, they should be jailed. So how do you react to all of this?
Let me take it from where I boldly agree with the recommendation of Femi Falana, our learned and most senior legal luminary, because we need to make sense of this conversation.
Exactly. I mean,
I thought
if a country like Seychelles can be paying anything between 150 to 400 and something dollars as minimum wage.
I'm even surprised you've already adopted a second country on that list,
South Africa.
And I was wondering which country was I going to adopt, because you were doing the breakdown, and the moment we started talking about minimum wage in countries like the United States.
Exactly. 1,160.
My hand almost broke when I was doing that calculation in Naira, because I was trying to convert.
Good.
And I'm looking at nothing less than 300 to 400,000, if not even more than that, if you look at our
as minimum wage.
And I asked myself, and you want people not to leave this country?
Exactly.
And you
so I knew at some point that this conversation will justify the Japa syndrome that has all of a sudden become a major phenomenon.
John, obviously it has to. And you tell me that people are talking about greener pastures and they will not think that there are greener pastures outside this country, when people are earning 1,400, when people are earning 1,600, with all the basic amenities available to them.
Readily
available to them. And you are talking about people...
Public transportation.
Power. Even,
social welfare.
Even when you enter these public transportation systems, there is internet for you. As you are leaving your house, you are going to work, you can get free Wi-Fi. These are the basic amenities that make people function. Sometimes I can even imagine those that work remotely, sitting comfortably in their homes, working remotely and earning decent pay. You were using some terms to describe the slap on the faces of the Nigerian worker.
Yes.
It's not just a slap on their faces. In fact, thanks to the former governor of Abia State, he even for that he gave them double slap. I thought he was going to say something reasonable, but look at the jargons he threw out when he said they should earn nothing less than 90,000 for somebody that left a state collecting life pensions and salaries, despite owing workers how much in the state. We know how many establishments he has had as an individual, and we know the state of some of those establishments because of the state of the welfare of workers. That is somebody that owns businesses. He employs people advocating for 90,000 and currently is earning life pensions, salary and arrears. He is in the Senate. He was a principal officer of the Senate. You could imagine how much was shared among them, minus the bogus allowances and the claims. And when people are saying 100,000, the worst you could advocate, the best you could advocate, what is the best about 90,000? Even 100,000, like you said, does it meet up with the needs of the world? Not completely, but we are saying it is a starting point. It will go, because when you said a slap, I best describe that action, what we do to our workers, as not just a national shame, but a national and international embarrassment. That Nigeria, that we call the giant of Africa,
the
with,
largest, supposedly largest, the commercial nerve
it
center
should
of
be
the
the
continent.
largest production outfit of Africa, and we cannot even export to gain revenue, rather we still import. And you have countries that do not have up to a quarter of the resources that our dear country Nigeria is blessed with. If you say South Africa, I don't want to compete with you by adopting South Africa as my second home. Is it now Gabon that I would adopt as my second home? Countries that do not have up to half. Look, these were countries that at some point in time Nigeria was supplying electricity. We are still supplying electricity to some of these countries.
You are talking electricity. What shook me was Libya. I knew I had visited Libya once or twice when Muammar Gaddafi was still alive and was still the president of Libya. And I visited Mali, and I was made to understand that Mali was practically built as from support by Libya. Most of the 5-star, 3-star hotels that existed in Mali at the time were built by Libya, by Muammar Gaddafi. And as we speak, Libya is a country in turmoil. But the shock is that Libyans are still earning far higher than Nigeria.
Because that was the template that even Gaddafi at his worst form of leadership, controlling Libya, had set even before. Look, somebody should correct me if I'm wrong. Libyans were even better off than Nigerians before Gaddafi was taken out by the West.
Yes.
You had families that were on living wages. As long as you did not exceed, because there was what they tried to do, this issue of birth control.
Yes.
As long as you had a family of 3, a family of 2, a normal standard size of a family, you were placed on wages. Not to not talk
as
of
a graduate, you were sure of, if you don't secure a job immediately after graduation, you were sure to get paid.
There was a certain amount of
have
stipend.
an apartment made available by government.
So some Libyans will even tell you life was even still better for them, even under the regime as brutal and as dictatorial as that. Because why? He tried to still control his people by making sure that the wealth that the country had, he was not just amassing it for himself, he was also sharing part of it to the people. And so there is still a lot of respect when you mention, brutal as the regime might have been. But come down to Nigeria.
Africa's longest democracy.
Democracy.
We will soon, in a few days, celebrate Democracy Day.
What do we have to celebrate as a democratic nation with unbroken democracy of 25 years? Go ask the average Nigerian on the street. I believe your reporters will be out there ahead of the June 12th celebrations. Go ask them on the street. This is 25 years of uninterrupted democracy. Nigerians will throw back the question at you, what have been some of those gains, democratic gains, beyond transition of power, that we have done from the military? What have been some of those benefits that the people who are supposed to be at the heart of the beneficiaries of the democratic journey that we are experiencing, how have they fared? Because let's look at the so-called the democracy that we are supposed to be enjoying. What is democracy in itself? It's supposed to be government of the people, by the people, and for the people. In today's scope of things and operational structure in Nigeria, what can the people say they are benefiting from the government that they were supposed to have elected to cater for them? Because let's look at our structure today. The same lawmaker that is talking, that is saying 90,000, do you know what your average lawmaker earns?
Yeah,
have you seen the figures that talks about?
I've seen a couple of those figures. I don't know if my director has, because I know we highlighted it yesterday during our morning show, Rapid Dawn, showing the disparity of what our lawmakers currently earn. I think I have. Good. 1999. National Assembly budget was 2.2 billion naira. Minimum wage was 3,000. 2000, in the year 2000, National Assembly budget, yes, that's the earnings of the Nigeria senators. In 2000, yes, and allowances. In 2000, the National Assembly budget was 29.5 billion naira. Minimum wage was 7,500. 2011, National Assembly budget went up to 111 billion naira, while the minimum wage was 18,000 naira. 2018, the National Assembly budget was 139.5 billion naira. Minimum wage was still 18,000 naira. In 2019, National Assembly budget was 128 billion naira, while minimum wage moved from 18,000 to 30,000 naira. 2020, that's 4 years ago, National Assembly budget was 128 billion. There wasn't a difference between 2019 and 2020. Somehow, they managed to keep it at the same budgetary allocation.
But there was an increase.
Yes, of 128 billion. And minimum wage still remained at 30,000 naira. 2021, National Assembly budget moved from 128 billion to 134 billion naira. Minimum wage 30,000. 2022 moved from 134 billion to 139 billion naira. Minimum wage still 30,000. 2023, last year, under the Buhari-led administration, the National Assembly budget moved from 139 billion to 228 billion naira, 28.1 billion naira, and the minimum wage still was 30,000 naira. And then 2024, National Assembly moves from 228.1 billion naira to 344.9, roughly 345 billion naira, and the minimum wage still remains 30,000 naira.
So let's look at the statistics.
Yes.
From 2022
yes,
to 2023, there was over an 100%
rise on the budgetary allocation to the National Assembly. And yet the minimum wage
30,000. Now, between that time and 2024, there was almost a 200, if not up to 300% rise.
Yes.
And what is the minimum wage? 30,000
naira.
Now, you talk about democracy being for the people, by the people, and of the people, right? The same 25 years of uninterrupted democracy. And we ask ourselves, whose interests are they really after? The interests of the masses who voted the same lawmakers, or themselves? Let me break it down for you. Imagine the population of the size of the National Assembly. They are putting their budgetary allocation to over 300 billion. And what is their population? Can we say for a fact? Yes, we know that we have over 400 members, if I'm not mistaken, of the National Assembly, plus their aides, plus their workers. Are there more than 1,000 people in this country? those that work in the, let's talk about the entire structure of the National Assembly. Can we honestly say that we have more than 1,000 people working in the National Assembly? That they are gulping a whooping sum of over 300 billion. And then what is the size of the current Nigerian workforce? Are we not talking about a population running into millions? And we have, don't forget that we have a population naturally of over 200 million. We are paying a minute percentage, 1,000 people or 1,005, if they are even up to 2,000 billions of naira. Please, those billions of naira, who should they be going to?
Let's just look at, now you said something. The only thing we export, produce maybe, because we drill it from our ground, is crude oil.
Partial production.
Partial production. Okay. Let's look at the minimum wage of top oil producing African countries in naira. Sadly, the only country that pays below Nigeria 30,000 naira is Sudan. Their minimum wage is 7,590 naira. We could excuse Sudan because Sudan has been in turmoil since I was born. You know, that country has hardly enjoyed peace. So that could be an excuse for the minimum wage being as low as 7,590 naira. But let's look at the top African countries, oil producing countries in you know, minimum wage. Top of the list is Gabon with 376,500. That is the living wage, the minimum wage in Gabon. Second is Equatorial Guinea with 323,878. I'm sure if my director checks, he will have this stat so that I can put it on the screen for our viewers to see, so that it's not going. It won't be said that Nkamiang John was really now figures. Where did he get it from? My director, if you check, I'm sure you have this figures. I've sent it to you. All right. So third on the list is Libya, that I talked about, with 313,440 naira as its minimum wage. I'm giving the equivalent in naira. Algeria is fourth. Don't forget, just recently, the economic index of countries in Africa was released, and Nigeria dropped all the way to fourth, as Nigeria used to be the largest economy in Africa. We are now even below Algeria. Algeria is fourth with 226,400. Tunisia is fifth with 199,573 naira. Egypt, I think Egypt is currently the second biggest economy on the continent. Egypt has 194,700 as its minimum wage. Ivory Coast has 188,250. Chad Republic, next door to Nigeria, has even a higher minimum wage than Nigeria, 150,587. Cameroon, 105,106 naira as its minimum wage. DR Congo, 94,947 naira as its minimum
That's
wage.
another war-torn
And
country.
what exactly I was going to say that. Angola, that is a oil-producing nation like Nigeria, 58,569 naira, even higher than Nigeria. Ghana, that we are always constantly in rivalry with. Ghana has a minimum wage of 38,768 naira. Then Nigeria in 13th position, 30,000 naira as minimum wage. And of course, Sudan, 7,000 naira, 590 as minimum wage.
I think we can excuse Sudan from that list, but just look at the sad reality of our place. of countries that even are earning decent living. From that statistics, we are not even top 10,
Exactly.
where we should be top 5. And we say top oil producing countries. Can you compare the quantity of production where oil is concerned that we have as compared to those countries? Look, it is a question of purposeful and deliberate leadership. What kind of leadership are we giving to our people? Is it the kind of leadership that encompasses all, that thinks about the welfare of the people, or is it the leadership of themselves, myself, by themselves for ourselves? We need to be serious about our approach to governance and our approach to the welfare of the people. I mean, I am disappointed to say the least. So in this list now, what really shows that Nigeria is really the powerhouse of Africa? What shows? What is the basis of our arguments? I remember when this conversation started, people said, oh, 474,000 is not realistic. But we have lawmakers earning up to 17.25 million. There is no African country.
In fact, if you go on social media, X, formerly known as Twitter, the conversation is adverse. Somebody said, and I read it again this morning, said, how can you say that 494,000 is
not realistic.
Is not realistic? You remove subsidy, knowing very well that the price of petrol,
Skyrockets.
the price of commodities would skyrocket. Didn't you know that people will need more money at that point in time? You brought in monetary policies that was further going to squeeze the pocket,
All of the little that they already have.
heavy taxations and all of those things. And then you are coming back to now say 490. You understand? So Nigerians are already having this conversation at different levels.
And it is a conversation that we must have if we must progress. Because what is unrealistic about 494,000? That you have a lawmaker earning as much as 17 million, 25 million. What is realistic about that? In the same way you do a breakdown, you have the same lawmakers that earn wardrobe allowance. You have lawmakers that earn entertainment allowance. You have lawmakers that earn newspaper allowance. And the worst of it all, in that same 17 to 20 million, whatever the figures may be, you have lawmakers that earn over 600,000 as hardship allowance. What is the hardship allowance the lawmakers are getting for being lawmakers? What level of hardship are they facing? Is it the hardship that they ran for office and they are serving their people? Is that the hardship? Or the hardship that they campaign around their constituencies seeking for votes? Is that the hardship? Or the hardship that you leave your houses fully air conditioned, you leave your houses fully let me use the word solarized. You leave your houses with constant electricity. You enter your car, a car with convoy of 2-3, surrounded by 1-2-3. Sometimes for the former governors, they will rather continue to have their own security detail. You see some of them with 10 vehicles. You see some of them with 5 DSS personnel. When your fellow lawmakers are using ordinary NSCDC and policemen. Now you ask yourself, what exactly is the hardship allowance that the lawmakers are getting for sitting 3 times in a day? And you are giving them hardship allowance. Who deserves the hardship allowance more? Is it the lawmakers who your people voted to represent them and make laws that will impact their lives, or the people that are in the streets that do not have access to basic healthcare services, or the people that are in the streets that do not have access to water, or the people that are in the streets that do not have access to quality education because there are no schools, or there are schools and the roofs are leaking? Tell me which category of Nigerians deserve hardship allowance. Is it not even more sad why your lawmakers are earning hardship allowance? The people that are working in your hospitals, when there are epidemics that like we saw during the COVID pandemic and others, for those of us for those of us that have been on the field, is it the hardship allowance that you cannot pay your health worker more than 5,000 naira for doing a job that puts his life at risk? And has to work on essential services, whether it is convenient or it is not convenient. We are not paying the essential workers hazard allowance, but those that are living in the comfort of their homes, they are driving exotic cars worth 50 billion. in the name of SUVs. Meanwhile, these people had cars. Please, what is the hardship that a Nigerian lawmaker is facing today, where your accommodation is provided for you, where you are living, you are driving in the best of exotic cars? There are some Nigerians that do not even want 30,000 naira is not enough to take them to work. Not to even talk of taking them home. They don't have vehicles of their own. Or you are telling me that the average Nigerian worker
And
does not,
no public transportation
no public transportation to ease the movement.
provided to ease
The movement of that worker. Tell me that worker does not deserve hardship allowance? That worker does not deserve as little as if it's a Toyota pencil? And then you are spending excessive money from the state, nothing to write home about, no justification for these spendings, and you are telling me that lawmakers are earning over 600,000 in terms as hardship allowance, and you tell me that 475 or 494,000 for your worker that is making you have all of these extra monies is unrealistic. I think we need to be serious about what we are doing in this country.
To press home this conversation, because I know that so some Nigerians, some viewers, some school of thought will be saying, this is not the conversation we should be having. Let's see the pages of our newspapers this morning, my director, because just to let you know that this is a national conversation. It is not just a conversation by organized labor, but it is a conversation at all levels. And I was with some in a particular gathering yesterday evening till late last night, and this matter also came up. What is the living wage? In fact, the question that every Nigerian is trying to answer right now and help the Bola Ahmed-led Tinubu-led leadership or administration to understand is, what is the value of the life of a Nigerian? Not just a Nigerian worker, but what is the value of the life of a Nigerian worker? Let's look at those papers again. That is the Punch. You can see the leading headline: minimum wage talks. Labour considers 100,000 naira as Tinubu issues ultimatum. President orders minister to calculate cost. Labour gives 1 week ultimatum. Let's not forget that this is a conversation that has been established by law. It is agreed that every 5 years, the minimum wage of the average worker has to be reviewed. And this is long overdue. Of course, during the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, it was reviewed upwards from 18,000 to 30,000. But at a time where Nigerians are facing inflation at the highest, this is the highest in the history of our nation, Nigeria, where inflation is in triple, maybe double digits as we speak. Let's look at the other newspapers as well. This is the Point newspaper. Tinubu directs Edun to present new minimum wage template in 48 hours, 2 days. 2 days. We will reject any paltry additions to 60,000 naira as minimum wage. Labour vows. Insights on offer that aligns with current inflationary pressures. National grid restored after strike suspension. Don't forget, it's not suspension anymore. It is actually strike relaxation. Of course, it's been confirmed across certain parts of Abuja. Power has been restored. Even though I must confess, I didn't sleep with power. Even when I left my house this morning, there was no power. Thanks to technology, solar inverters, and
you're not yet a beneficiary.
I'm not yet a beneficiary of the restoration of the national grid. Let's see the next newspaper as well. This is Nigerian News Direct. Tinubu order minimum wage. So you can see on all the national dailies, the conversation remains the labor strike. Nigeria lost 3 trillion naira, estimated 3 trillion naira. First day of action, says OPS. Nigeria lost. So imagine how much we have lost. That's as a country, how much we lost at macro and micro levels. That is News Telegraph. Nigeria lost 3 trillion naira. The Business Times. How Nigeria's economy can be more productive. Former CBN Deputy Governor Magalu says Nigeria's productivity level can't support 400k minimum wage. That is the argument of a numbers man.
Can I chip in there?
He says Nigeria's productivity cannot support 400,000 naira minimum
Can
wage.
I chip in there? Why
Yes.
you may be right, because you also need to look at the level of the productivity of the workers
Yes.
and how much they are bringing that really makes us generate so much money that we can actually pay them the way they deserve. But can I also ask our economic expert, Professor Moalu, when he was the director of the
CBN.
how
What was the
much-
value of the naira?
and beyond the value of the naira, which was very good then, how much was his salary?
As a
Is
director,
Yes,
in
is
the
the CBN
Central
not
Bank of
another
Nigeria.
cash making factory for this country?
And I think even as he has left the CBN, there are still some perks he still enjoys.
Well, that is a different conversation entirely. The perks that come with certain individuals occupying some positions of work. Look, we waste so many, we waste money in places where we should not. The state governors also want to make the argument, oh, there is no money to pay. There is no money to pay. How many convoys do you find in their vehicle? How many convoys do you see them drive with? There is no money to pay. When they leave this country for engagements, do they travel? Do they travel local? Do they not use private jets? There is no money to pay. Where do they lodge? Don't they lodge in 5-star hotels? Come on, what are we saying? When they build houses, do they go to places like Ketu in Lagos? Do they go to places like Maraba Yanya? Is it not choice areas that they go to where you can buy land for as much as 200 million? Thank you. And they have lifts designed like just like their government houses, and they say there is no money to pay.
Well, this morning I did say it was going to be a very controversial convo. The conversation hasn't ended. But to wrap up today's edition of the show, Nigeria's woes are surmountable. There are still some of us who see light at the end of the tunnel. In fact, I belong to the school of thought inspired by one of my favorite writers, Ernest Hemingway, who said, if you stare long enough into the darkness, you will see the light.
Now, let me also say this. Have we even discovered the location of the tunnel? Not to talk of seeing the light.
Wow.
That's to show you how far our journey is. You must have first seen the sign that this is the tunnel before you even see the light that you need to pass through that tunnel.
Well, by addressing the root causes, we can revive our economy and end the strike, because right now the strike has not been ended, it has not been suspended, it has only been relaxed for 1 week. And of course, usher in a brighter future for Nigeria. We've laid down the figures, the numbers, compared Nigeria to other African countries, and also giving you an insight into what your counterparts, our counterparts, earn in the UK and in the United States, right? So, our advocacy this morning on Korero is that let us unite, demand accountability and action from our leaders at all levels. I insist, at all levels. Mr. President has come out to say, look, don't keep pointing fingers at the federal government. The federal government will play its part, but also hold your governors accountable. We are seeing governors who, during their campaigns, said they were not going to collect security votes. They were not going to collect loans. They are spending those security votes. They are collecting loans. Some of them are operating from their private houses and are lotting billions as expense for operating from their private houses rather than the government house, especially in a state like Abia, where there is a new government house and there is an old government house. And yet they are lotting billions. And people are hailing them. These are the people you should hold accountable. Yes, hold your leaders accountable. Together, we can transform Nigeria's doom and gloom into a beacon of hope. I'm borrowing from Mr. President's renewed hope agenda. Yes, we can turn Nigeria into a beacon of hope and prosperity. That is our message this morning as we join Labour by extension in that convo on what should be Nigerians' living wage, not just minimum wage, but living home. That our minimum wage should be able to take us home at the end of the day.
Let's even take us to work to start.
Take us to
before
work
he takes
and take us home at the end of the day. Special thank you to my guest, Kule Adeniyi, for having this conversation with me. And special thanks to everyone out there who is involved and engaged in this ongoing national conversation. I think this conversation is even more important than the National Assembly's review of the Constitution or confab,
or the reversal of the old anthem,
or the reversal of the old anthem, as it were. This is the most important conversation as far as the Nigerian polity is concerned. I am Nkamian John, the beloved, also known as the controversial. At least you got a piece of the controversial part of me today on the show. As always, we promise to keep our ears to the ground and our searchlight beamed on developments as they evolve, and we'll do our bit to bring them to the front burner. Till tomorrow, where we'll bring you another incisive edition of Rapid TV's evolving social, political, and general interest show, Korero. It's bye for now.